Dearest simmers, there is a gentle rhythm to the countryside, or so the uninitiated like to believe. The hills may cradle the parish in quiet, and the lanes may wind with pastoral charm, but Willow Downs has never been a place where life softens simply because the air is sweet. And rest assured, your observer has no intention of growing complacent. A change of scenery does not dull one's eye for detail. The first arrivals swept in with the early autumn breeze. Most notable among them, the new Earl and Countess of Claybridge, who left Fairwicke engaged and arrived in Willow Downs, quite thoroughly married. A modest vicarage along the road served as their chapel, and the Dowager Countess greeted the newlyweds with a kiss on each cheek, before retiring to her cottage on the estate grounds the very next morning. Some families cling to tradition. The Claybridges seem content to outrun it. Close behind came Miss Violet Harrow and Lord Nathaniel Trevane, bound for Somerford, the Winbridge seat. Their Christmas wedding promises to be the crowning event of the season. Miss Amelia Morcott, ever the devoted friend, travelled with them and was welcomed warmly by the Earl and Countess, as well as by the Countess's dear companion, Lady Camille Devermont, whose elegant ties to Macquarie inspire speculation. Speaking of Macquarie, Prince Antoine has joined the royal family at Averndon Keep for the season. Whether his presence is inspired by Lady Camille, Miss Morcott, or some motive yet unseen, the household appears perfectly content to host him, for now. The newcomers were swiftly embraced by Willow Downs society. The Duke and Duchess of Aylesford, the Duke is Princess Helena's brother, offered the first formal welcome. The Redferns, with Reverend Henry of their helm, extended their gentle hospitality, while Baron Trevelyan and his daughter added their refined charm. The Carters, the Atkins of the Copper Cow, and the industrious Thorns rounded out the parish's more homespun ranks, proving that every thread has its place in the tapestry. And thus, the season after the season begins, quietly, yes, but never without promise. After all, the countryside may whisper, but the observer always hears it first.
Dear Lavinia, it feels surreal to write to you from Somerford, the Winbridge country seat. When the carriage turned the corner and that great white colossus came into view, I nearly lost my nerve. It is beautiful, but imposing in a way that made me feel very small. If Nathaniel hadn't squeezed my hand, and if Amelia hadn't been steady behind me, I might have fled back down the drive. But the moment we stepped inside, everything changed. The Earl and Countess welcomed us warmly. The Earl looked me over with a seriousness that froze my breath, then broke into a booming, "Well done, my boy," that echoed off the marble. The Countess refused my curtsy entirely, took my hand, and settled Amelia and me beside her as though we already belonged. She introduced us to her guest, Lady Camille Devermont, striking, elegant, and visiting from Macquarie, and the afternoon passed in easy conversation. By dinner, I felt less like an intruder and more like a future member of the household. I've had several letters since arriving. Victoria writes that she and Julian are happy and intend to marry once the last whispers of scandal fade. Ellie and Oliver are already planning adventures, and I would not be surprised if they elope somewhere along the way. It seems to be all the rage these days. If you hadn't heard about the Earl and Countess of Claybridge, and Arabella, our dear sister, had a letter waiting for me the moment I arrived. I imagine she wrote to you as well, so perhaps you can verify my conclusions. She sounds determined to make Haltbridge Manor entirely her own, and I could almost hear her voice as she described the redecorating. She insists she is perfectly content, which, coming from Arabella, usually means she is working very hard to be so. I hope she can attend my wedding, since Northmere Vale is too far for casual visits. and I miss her and you more than I expected. Despite everything our family has endured, I am grateful for where we've landed. There are no more secrets. We can simply be ourselves. And now that I know what it is to have my heart truly sing, thanks to Nathaniel, I want the same joy for you more than anything. I should close this letter and rest now. Every day here brings something new, and I will write again soon. Love, Violet.
There are few sights lovelier than Avondin Keep alight for an autumn masquerade, and fewer still than witnessing a young hostess take her first steps into the traditions once shaped by her late mother. Princess Helena, usually the picture of serene composure, allowed the faintest flutter of nerves to peek through her mask, a charming reminder that even the most graceful among us feel the weight of legacy. At her side, Prince William carried himself with quiet pride, though a discerning eye might have noted a certain tension beneath his protective attentiveness. Whether it was the joy of impending fatherhood, the secret revealed at midnight's unmasking, or the solemnity of new responsibilities, he watched his wife with a tenderness that softened even the grandest corners of the hall. The Winbridge household arrived in full force, adding their customary elegance to the evening. The Countess, radiant in a gown of silvered silk, moved through the crowd with practiced ease. The Earl, though as gracious as ever, bore a touch of weariness about the eyes. Perhaps the happy bustle of a full household or the joyful demands of an upcoming wedding have kept him from his rest. Their son and his soon-to-be wife presented a happy picture, settled, content, and glowing with the promise of a peaceful future. Miss Amelia Morcott, in town to assist her dear friend, shone brightly among the jewels of the hall. Though she alone left the season without a match, one could not help but notice that a certain foreign prince seemed determined to remedy that omission. Her dance with Prince Antoine drew more than a few curious glances, though the warmth between them cooled when Lady Camille d'Evermont was seen speaking to him in hushed, urgent tones. Miss Morcott, passing a touch too near, may have overheard the final admonition. You owe it to your family and to Ushemi to return and make things right. One hopes she treads carefully where hearts and secrets intertwine. As for young Miss Abigail Trevelyan, her presence was a rare and welcome surprise. Fresh from her years away at school, and now returned to a household more sombre than suited to her bright spirit, she moved through the evening with a quiet grace that belied her solitude. One could hardly fault her for slipping outside to breathe freer air than her father's shuttered halls allow. When she returned, her cheeks were warmed by something gentler than the cold. But that, dear Simmers, is a story for another day.
Dear Mr. Thorne, I shouldn't put these words to paper, yet I feel I owe you the truth of it. When we met, I felt as I never had before. Standing there, outside the masquerade, I found a kindred spirit. Every moment in your company then, and yesterday at the Copper Cow, is committed to my memory. You spoke with such warmth, such ease, as though we had known one another far longer than 2 brief encounters. I confess I felt it too, that strange sense of recognition, as though the world had shifted by a degree, and I alone noticed. But reality is far less forgiving than a masquerade. My father's hopes for me are fixed. His circumstances, though he would never admit it, are more fragile than they appear. He believes a brilliant match will secure our future, and I cannot bear to disappoint him. I cannot be the cause of further worry. For these reasons, I must ask you, beg you, to forget me. Whatever spark passed between us was a moment's folly, nothing more. In another life, perhaps. But it can never be. I'm sorry. Sincerely yours, Abigail.
Miss Trevelyan, if your intention in penning that letter was to cool my admiration, You have accomplished the opposite. Your honesty only deepens my regard. I understand duty. I understand the weight of a parent's hopes. But I also know that the moment we met, I was changed forever. I am not a romantic. I am a man who works with his hands. A simple man. I am not a poet. So, let me tell you clearly. I recognize something in you I have never found before, and I never will again. You ask me to forget you. I cannot. I would not disown you by pressing where you have drawn the boundary. But I ask only this. Allow me one conversation, one moment unmasked. The Willow Downs Harvest Fair is to be held on Saturday. If you can, meet me at the outer gate at dusk. It is public enough to be proper, quiet enough to speak freely. If you do not come, I will trouble you no further, though I will never forget. Yours, Gabriel.
Dearest Simmers, one discovers when one is tucked away in the countryside that even the humblest of gatherings can become the subject of great interest. Such was the case this week when the Willow Downs Harvest Festival transformed the village green into a lantern-lit celebration of cider, music, and the sort of cheerful chaos only rural life can produce. Most notable among them was the appearance of Princess Helena, accompanied by her sister-in-law, the ever-gracious Duchess of Aylesford, and a lively entourage of children. Princess Octavia, in particular, seemed to take great delight in discovering her new cousins, darting between stalls with the unrestrained joy only the very young can muster. With both Princess Helena and Lady Lydia expecting, the sight of the two ladies together, radiant, serene, and surrounded by little ones, offered a glimpse of the family harmony so many in Fairwicke have long hoped to see restored. Yet beneath Octavia's laughter, one senses a lingering ache, a story not yet settled. May the coming months bring her the peace she so richly deserves. The townsfolk, for their part, mingled with the gentry in a manner that would shock certain London drawing rooms, but feels entirely natural in Willow Downs. Festivals, it seems, have a way of illuminating more than lanterns. The Redferns were out in force, though a sort of tension simmered between the Reverend and Mr. Atkins, particularly when their sons were spotted walking together, a touch too closely, some whispered, along the edge of the green. Miss Lottie spent the better part of the evening rooted to a corner, her gaze fixed with unwavering intensity upon Mr. Thorne, who appeared determined not to notice. And speaking of Mr. Gabriel Thorne, when the last of the laughter faded and the green fell quiet, he alone remained at the gate. Whatever he hoped to find at the festival did not arrive, though he waited long enough for several to take notice. In the end, he turned back toward home beneath a darkening sky, the lanterns behind him flickering out one by one. And so the festival ended, and night settled over Willow Downs, carrying quiet stories, still waiting to unfold.
I keep coming here because I don't know who else will listen. You always knew what to do. You always knew what to say. I'm trying to keep things steady, but nothing stays where it should. Samuel barely looks at me anymore. He used to tell me everything, more than I wanted, even. Now he slips away with Pierce Atkins, like I'm some stranger he barely recognizes. I know Father disapproves of it. Samuel feels judged, and I can't reach him through that. I've tried. I really have. But he just shuts me out. If you were here, Mama, you'd talk to him. You'd make him feel safe. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do any of what you did. And I'm scared that if I don't do something, I'll lose him completely. Maybe if they were all forced to talk, really talk, it would shake something loose. Maybe then Father would finally stop pretending everything is fine. And Gabriel, Mama, I know you'd tell me to be patient, to be gentle, to let things unfold. But I've been patient my whole life. I've waited and waited for him to see me. And he would have, I know he would have, if little Miss Abigail Trevelyan hadn't come home from finishing school and dazzled him with her fancy torn manners. She made him look at her the way I always hoped he'd look at me. But whatever happened, she seems determined to avoid him now. And he's hurting, and I understand him better than she ever could. If I could just get him alone, somewhere quiet, somewhere he can't avoid the truth, maybe he'd finally see what's right in front of him. Maybe he'd realize I'm the one who stayed. Father doesn't notice any of this. He barely notices me at all. I do everything right, everything you taught me, Mama. And it's like I'm invisible. I'm so tired of being invisible. I know you'd tell me to be kind, to be patient, to be good. But I can't just sit here anymore, Mama. If no one else will fix this family, then I will. Even if I have to do things you wouldn't like. I'm sorry for that, but I don't see any other way. I miss you, Mama.
Dearest Simmers, it has been some years since Greenbelt Place last welcomed society through its doors, and longer still since it did so with anything resembling ease. The house has worn its quiet like a shroud since the passing of Lady Trevelyan, and Baron Trevelyan himself has preferred solitude to sociability. One might therefore imagine the district's astonishment when invitations were issued for a musical evening of quite unexpected consequence. Foremost among the company were their Highnesses Prince William and Princess Helena of Fairwicke, whose attendance would have been honour enough for any household. The Winbridge party arrived next. Viscount Killow with his fiancée Miss Violet Harrow, accompanied by Miss Amelia Morcott, whose presence brightened the room at once. Their number was soon joined by the newly married Earl and Countess of Claybridge, Lord Thomas and his lady, May Honoria Morcott, whose arrival neatly bound the Morcott and Winbridge interests into one harmonious whole. Mr. Felix Morcott himself, pausing in Willow Downs on his way to retire to the family estate, completed the picture of familial strength. Adding a foreign gleam to the gathering was Prince Antoine of Marcraw, a guest of the Fairwicke royal family. He was observed in brief, quiet conversation with Miss Amelia Morcott. Whatever small misunderstanding may have lingered between them seemed, to this observer's eye, to soften into something far more companionable as the evening progressed. Yet the true purpose of the gathering was Miss Abigail Trevelyan's musical performance. Newly returned from school and very much her father's hope, she was presented to a room notably rich in titles, consequence, and, one suspects, not accidentally, comfortable purses. The Baron's pride in his daughter was evident, so too was his careful attention to who watched her, and with what degree of interest. When Miss Trevelyan took her place at the pianoforte, her nerves showed in the slight tremor of her hands. It was Miss Morcott who rescued the moment, lifting her voice in gentle, unplanned accompaniment. The effect was immediate. Miss Trevelyan steadied, the room warmed, and Greenbelt Place felt, for the first time in many years, like a home with a future. And though the evening belonged to Miss Abigail, it did not escape this observer's notice that Miss Morcott's clear, steady voice drew the eye of at least one foreign prince, and held it.
Dear Diary, life in the parish has taken a most unexpected and delightful turn. What was once a weekly ritual of familiar faces and predictable chatter has been transformed by the arrival of 3 young ladies who have, quite without warning, become dear friends. At the church sewing circle, Lottie Redfern's domain has been thoroughly invaded. Miss Violet Harrow, soon to be Viscountess Killow, and Miss Amelia Morcott bring with them the sparkle of Fairwicke, new stories, new fashions, new ways of seeing the world. Their polish faded quickly into easy laughter as we stitched side by side. And then there is Miss Abigail Trevelyan. Of course, I knew of her. Everyone does. The whispers about her sudden departure after Lady Trevelyan's death have never quite died away. and I knew of Gabriel's encounters with her, though he has always been maddeningly discreet. But the moment we were introduced, I understood more than he had ever said aloud. Within an hour, the mysterious girl who had left my brother wounded became simply Abby. Perhaps it is her warmth, or her quiet humour, or her earnest attempts to befriend Lottie, who remains resolutely unmoved. Whatever the reason, I see now why Gabriel is so taken with her. And I confess, I am relieved. For too long, I feared I would be forced to call Lottie Redfern's sister, simply because she has always assumed Gabriel would turn to her. He, in his gallantry, has never discouraged her, leaving me to endure her condescension on his behalf. Watching her bristle at Abby's presence is, I admit, a small and satisfying justice. I mean to help them. Abby and Gabriel both. They long for each other, though neither will say it. And the obstacles between them are nothing but pride and nonsense. If I can nudge them toward happiness, I shall do so gladly. And if it also spares me from Lottie's triumph, all the better. Truthfully, I find myself in a different position than my friends. Violet has expectations to meet. Amelia blushes at the mere mention of a certain prince. Abby is watched like a hawk by that fearsome governess of hers. But I, thanks to my brother's generosity, may choose when and where, or even if, I marry. Their company has reminded me how rare that freedom is, and perhaps that is why I feel so strongly that I must use it well.
Dearest Simmers, there are traditions that belong to a place, and then there are traditions that belong to its people. The Aylesford Hunt and Harvest Ball has always been both. After years of silence following the tragic loss of the late Duke and Duchess, it was a joy to see the grounds alive once more under the gracious guidance of their graces, the Duke and Duchess of Aylesford. The guest list reflected the full tapestry of Willow Down society. Everyone from the royal family to the Atkins of the Copper Cow and all ranks between heeded the call. Among the newcomers were Baron Bertram Bertie Harbury and his mother, Lady Harbury, both amiable additions to the parish. The Baron proved steady and unassuming, while Lady Harbury's bright conversation and keen interest in local company made her a favourite among those she encountered. The royal family was represented by Her Majesty and Princess Helena, whose presence carried its own poignancy. This was, after all, her family's tradition restored. She was radiant in a gown of fuchsia that echoed her late mother's fondness for bold colour. The absence of His Royal Highness Prince William was noted by many, though no explanation was offered beyond the assurance of unavoidable obligations. Princess Helena bore the evening with her customary grace. The Earl and Countess of Winbridge attended the dinner portion but departed before the dancing, an unusual choice for a couple known for their fondness for society's livelier hours. Their son, Viscount Killow, remained with his fiancée Miss Violet Harrow, both in excellent spirits. Miss Amelia Morcott and Prince Antoine of Marquois shared a dance, something becoming pleasantly customary, their conversation animated, their smiles unguarded. It is a pleasure to see a friendship deepen so naturally. Among the younger set, one could not help but observe the quiet warmth between Miss Abigail Trevelyan and Mr. Gabriel Fawn early in the evening. Miss Lottie Redfern certainly noticed, her expression turning decidedly cool. Later, Mr. Thorne was seen in earnest conversation with Baron Trevelyan in a shadowed alcove, emerging with a troubled air. Miss Redfern promptly claimed him for a dance, her triumph unmistakable. Yet for all the undercurrents, the evening belonged to the Aylesfords, to tradition reclaimed, to community gathered, and to the gentle turning of the season. In Willow Downs, some things endure because they are cherished. Others endure because they are needed. This night, happily, was both.
My dearest William, I have only just returned from the Harvest Ball, and I could not wait even to remove my cloak before writing to you. The evening was a triumph. I never doubted Lydia's ability to restore Mamma's tradition with her usual competence, but she surpassed every expectation. For a moment, I fancied I could feel Mamma's eyes upon us, pleased to see the hall alive again after so many years of silence. The only shadow on the night was your absence. I understand, more than anyone, how vital your quest is, not only for you but for all of us. Finding your father means restoring our king, and I know you will succeed. Still, I missed you. I hesitate to burden you while you shoulder such work, but I must ask one thing. Please write to our daughter. As the days pass and the baby's arrival draws nearer, Octavia grows increasingly uncertain. I reassure her as best I can that she is cherished, that no child could ever replace her, but she needs to hear it from you. Even if you cannot answer me, please write to her. I remain, as always, your loving wife, Helena.
Darling Helena, your letter was a balm to me. I am glad beyond words to hear of your family's triumph, and I wish I had been there to witness it. I look forward to every detail when I return. Knowing that peace has finally come to Aylesford strengthens my resolve. Your understanding of my journey means more than I can say. On nights when the distance feels unbearable, I lean on your steadiness. I curse that this quest has taken me from your side, yet I know why I must see it through. I want to return to you whole, ready to welcome our child without the shadow of my father's absence lingering over us. And yes, restoring him to his throne is part of that. I have found promising clues. It seems he has not been hiding so much as simply choosing not to return. I hope to change that. Thank you for telling me of Octavia's worries. I have enclosed a letter for her, and I beg you to remind her, gently, that no child, present or future, could ever replace her in my heart. She is ours, and I love her completely. I must close now and follow a new lead. Pray it brings me home to you soon. Your adoring husband, William.
Dearest Simmers, Claybridge House has stood largely silent since the late Earl's passing, its grand rooms dimmed through several seasons of mourning. Thus, last evening's reception, hosted by Lady Honoria Sheffield, the new Countess, was met with considerable anticipation. Officially, it served as a belated celebration for those unable to attend the wedding. Unofficially, it marked the first true unveiling of the Earl and Countess of Claybridge in their shared domain. Thomas Sheffield, the Earl, greeted guests with his characteristic warmth before circulating with an ease that suggested he is settling comfortably into his new responsibilities. Lady Honoria, meanwhile, carried the evening with grace. Yet even the most charming hostess cannot entirely disguise the subtle glances cast toward her mother-in-law. Lady Margaret Claybridge, serene and impeccably composed, offered nothing but gentle smiles. Still, one could not help noticing the faint tension. Honoria seeking reassurance, Margaret offering elegance rather than instruction. It was the quiet negotiation of two women learning to share authority. The Winbridges were among the first to arrive, though the Earl and Countess made only a brief appearance before retiring early. Their departure drew no comment. Their distinguished house guest, Lady Camille Guevermont of Marquois, remained and lent the gathering a refined, cosmopolitan air. Among the younger set, Miss Amelia Morcott, sister to the hostess, was seen in close conversation with Prince Antoine of Marquois. The prince scarcely left her side, their quiet ease drawing more than a few speculative glances. When Miss Morcott stepped away for a moment, Lady Camille approached the prince. Their exchange was brief, but its effect unmistakable. Whatever passed between them left Antoine thoughtful, even unsettled. By the time Amelia returned, something in his demeanour had shifted, subtly but undeniably. Across the room, Lady Anna Harbury, new arrived in Willow Downs, devoted herself to Baron Trevelyan's every word. The Baron, earnest and entirely oblivious, seemed convinced her interest lay in promoting her son, young Bertie, as a suitable match for his daughter. Those observing from the edges noted a rather different focus in Lady Harbury's gaze. In all, Lady Honoria's reception was a success. yet it may be remembered less for its hospitality and more for the quiet turning of fortunes it revealed. Some evenings sparkle with laughter, others with revelation. This one, it seems, managed both.
To the lovely Emilia, I write to you on the eve of my departure, when the lamps burn low and the house lies quiet, save for the restless turning of my own thoughts. Duty calls me home with a force I can no longer resist, and though I will not trouble you with its particulars, I beg you believe this much: I would not quit this land, nor the company I have cherished within it, for anything less than the gravest necessity. If I may be permitted the liberty, I hope you will allow me to call you my friend. In these past months, your presence has been a gentle constancy, a warmth I had not expected to find so far from Mahua. Your kindness, your laughter, the grace with which you move through the world, these have been a solace to me, a quiet light in a season when I had thought myself quite alone. I will carry them with me, as one carries a treasured melody long after the final note has faded into silence. There was a moment at the Trevelyan musical evening that returns to me now with a vividness that steals my breath. Miss Trevelyan stood before the company, her courage wavering, her hands trembling upon the keys. And you, without hesitation, without thought for yourself, stepped to her side and offered your voice to steady hers. In that instant, when your song rose to meet her faltering notes, something in you shone with such brilliance that I could not look away. The generosity of your spirit, the fire of your soul, the depth of feeling you revealed so unguardedly, it struck me with a clarity I had not known in years. I was changed in that moment, though I dared not name how. Perhaps it is because of that moment, because of what I glimpsed and what it awakened, that I cannot remain here, half bound and half honest. I must set right what lies behind me before I may look toward anything ahead with a whole and unshadowed heart. Until that is done, I have no right to ask anything of you. Please, I beg you, do not set your life aside for maybes, spun of moonlight and dreams. You deserve a peace untroubled by uncertainty, a happiness unclouded by another's burdens. I will wish for that for you each night, wherever I may be. If fate is kinder than I deserve, perhaps I may one day return to witness it myself. Until then, I remain your true friend, Antoine.
Dearest Simmers, it has long been said that a young woman's reputation may be remade only once in a lifetime, yet Miss Violet Harrow has accomplished the feat with a quiet dignity that reminds us all that character may, on occasion, outshine birth. Whatever whispers once clung to her family's name have softened into polite history, eased first by her own honesty and now by the Countess of Winbridge's unmistakable endorsement. The Countess's Ladies' Evening, held at Somerford yesterday, was proof of that transformation. Intended as both a celebration of the upcoming Christmas nuptials and a gentle introduction to Violet's future role, the gathering made one truth abundantly clear. Miss Harrow, soon to be Viscountess Killow, is not merely accepted. She is welcomed, guided, and claimed by the Countess herself. Though the evening was largely joyous, another subtle shift did not escape notice. Miss Amelia Morcott, usually the brightest presence in any room, moved with a quieter step. Her smile remained warm, yet its familiar spark had dimmed. A change observed even as the ladies around her politely pretended not to see it. Lady Camille Devamont, ever perceptive, kept a gentle watch over her, offering small kindnesses that required no explanation. Whatever passed between Prince Antoine and Miss Morcott was not spoken of, yet its echo lingered in the soft spaces between conversations. Still, the evening belonged to Violet. The younger ladies admired her with a mixture of envy and genuine affection. The matrons appraised her with approving nods. Gifts were offered, advice dispensed, and the Countess's pride, understated but unmistakable, wrapped around the gathering like a benediction. A Christmas wedding. A union that will bind Violet, not only to Nathaniel, but to the Winbridge legacy itself. And as the candles burned low, and the ladies drifted into smaller circles of conversation, it became clear that the season's tides had shifted once again. Miss Violet Harrow is no longer a girl navigating the treacherous currents of society. She is becoming its future.
My dear sister Lavinia, I was so happy to read your latest letter, and it came at such an appropriate time. I have been thinking of you constantly these past days. And though I know you cannot be here, I feel your absence keenly. Everything at Summerford moves with a strange mixture of haste and stillness, as though the house itself is holding its breath. The Earl's condition has worsened. No one speaks of it directly, but the truth is felt in every quiet footstep and every closed door. Nathaniel keeps vigil beside him, and though he tries to reassure me, I see the strain in his face. The Countess bears herself with her usual grace, but her composure is stretched thin, and James wanders the halls as though searching for something he cannot name. I want to comfort them all, though I hardly know how. And yet, in some quiet way, they have become my family already. Papa wrote to me recently as well. I understand why he feels it best that you and Mother remain at home. So soon after last season's revelations, any appearance from the Harrow family at a public celebration might stir memories best left undisturbed. He fears it might cast a shadow over the day. And though the decision pains me, I know he believes he is protecting us. Still, I wish you could be here to see me marry Nathaniel. I know you too worry about Amelia. She has been quieter than usual. I have seen her draw out Antoine's letter when she thinks no one is watching, reading it with that stillness she only has when something matters very much. Yesterday, I heard her practicing the song she intends to sing at the wedding, and I'm almost certain she had tears in her eyes, though she brushed it off. And she has taken to asking Lady Camille for stories of Marquois, though never of Antoine himself. I hope that ache in her heart eases soon, and I will give her your regards. I miss you all terribly, and I wish you could stand beside me as I step into this new life. But even from afar, I feel your love, and that is a comfort I carry with me. Give our mother my affection, and tell Papa I understand. And know that when I walk down the aisle, I will be thinking of all of you.
Dearest Simmers, winter has only just settled over Willow Downs, and already your observer finds herself chronicling yet another country dance. A reminder that the season cannot arrive soon enough. And in the meantime, this modest gathering proved far livelier than its humble setting suggested. This Abigail Trevelyan began the night partnered with Baron Bertie Harbury, much to the satisfaction of her father, Baron Trevelyan. Their set was perfectly correct, perfectly polite, and perfectly unremarkable. Yet Mr. Gabriel Fawn reacted as though it were a declaration of intent. Whether he misread the perfunctory nature of the dance or simply disliked the sight of Miss Trevelyan in another gentleman's arms, he stepped forward at once to claim the next set. And what a contrast it proved to be. Where Baron Harbury offered courtesy, Mr. Thorne offered warmth. Where Miss Trevelyan had been composed, she now seemed unmistakably a light. One wonders why these two persist in being kept apart by social circumstances that scarcely exist, and by a family quarrel so ancient that even your observer has forgotten its origin. Lady Harbury, for her part, did not appear the least distressed by the lack of progress between her son and Miss Trevelyan. Indeed, she scarcely left Baron Trevelyan's side the entire evening, suggesting that Bertie may not be the match she has in mind at all. Samuel Redfern and Pierce Atkins did not dance, but seemed perfectly content in quiet conversation near the corner. Reverend Redfern, observing them with a deepening frown, might consider whether his disapproval springs from principle or from a reluctance to see his son happy. Your observer would be most disappointed if the latter proved true. Though Prince William is apparently still away on his quest, Princess Helena presided alone over the dance, her serenity intact, even in so rustic a setting. One hopes this will be the last time we must see the graceful lady unaccompanied. She bears her duties well, but even a princess may feel the absence of her husband keenly. In all, this country dance was far more exciting than expected. Perhaps I am longing for the season after all. If only so I might catch a moment's peace from all this delightful provincial drama. Truly, if a country barn in winter can produce such commotion, only the season's drawing rooms may spare us from being entirely overwhelmed.
Abigail, I have only just left the country dance, yet I could not rest until I wrote to you. Our dance tonight was an impulse I ought to have mastered, and I regret any difficulties it may cause you. But I cannot regret the dance itself. If I close my eyes, I imagine I can still feel your gloved hand in mine. I can still hear the last strains of our waltz in my ears. I want you to know, my intentions are honorable, have always been honorable. I know you and my sister Isabel have become friends. She thinks highly of you as well, and she encouraged me to speak to your father, which I did at the Aylesford ball. Unfortunately, despite my frank plea, your father was unwilling to entertain my suit. And yet, when I saw you tonight, when you smiled, and Baron Harbury led you out, I found I could not stand aside and pretend I felt nothing. If my impertinence has brought you any discomfort or censure, I am deeply sorry. That was never my wish. I do not know if your father will ever relent, but know that I will not stop asking unless you tell me to. Please know that I remain yours, Gabriel.
Gabriel, your letter found me before I had even finished unpinning my hair, and I have read it more times than I should admit. I knew, when you crossed the room tonight, that you were acting against my father's wishes. I ought to have stepped back. I ought to have remembered every one of his admonitions. Instead, I placed my hand in yours and wished the music would never end. You must understand something clearly. I am not angry with you. I am only afraid for you. My father's refusal was final. I know him well. He will not be persuaded by your earnestness, honor, or sincerity. His reasons are older than either of us. A feud between our families, the origin of which he either does not remember or will not tell me. Regardless, the greatest impediment between us is one you can never change: your name. I do not want you to keep asking him, not because I wish you to stop caring, but because I cannot bear to see you hurl yourself against a wall that will never break. And yet, if you were to step entirely, I think that would break me. I do not know what future is possible. I only know what lies between us is true, and know that I too am yours, no matter what transpires. Abigail.
Dearest Simmers, it is not, as a rule, my habit to devote an entire column to a church social. One hopes that I will soon have events of greater consequence than the rearrangement of hymnals or the quality of the lemonade to report. Yet every so often, even the quietest parish gathering produces a moment so unexpected, so thoroughly arresting, that one feels almost duty-bound to discuss it. Such was the case this past Thursday evening. The usual residents of Willow Downs mingled beneath the vicarage bunting, exchanging pleasantries until the arrival of its de facto hostess, Miss Charlotte Redfern. The vicar's daughter entered with a confidence that startled even those who knew her best. One could almost hear the collective intake of breath from the next parish over. Her gown, striking in both colour and cut, was rather dramatic for so humble an occasion. It seems Miss Redfern believed she was attending a different event entirely when she executed her alterations. Deep red, square-necked, and finished with a gleaming clasp at the waist, it would not have been out of place at a Fairwicke soirée. Here, beneath her father's parishioners, it struck a decidedly different chord. Reverend Redfern appeared momentarily struck dumb, his expression darkening as he began to cross the room with thunder gathering in his eyes. His son, Samuel, looked on with undisguised amusement and no small measure of relief, grateful for once not to be the object of paternal ire. Across the room, Mr. Gabriel Thorne and Miss Abigail Trevelyan were in quiet conversation, their ease with one another a marked change from previous weeks. Mr. Thorne's expression shifted at once to exasperation upon seeing Miss Redfern, but before he could act, Miss Trevelyan slipped from his side and approached the girl with gentle composure. Her warm greeting steadied what might otherwise have become a scene. It was at that moment that Baron Bartram Harbury, observing the tableau with growing interest and perhaps a touch of fluster, requested an introduction. He made his way toward the young ladies at once, perhaps putting the final nail in the coffer of Baron Trevelyan's hopes for a match with his daughter. It was not, perhaps, the impression Miss Redfern intended, but it was certainly the one that will be remembered. One always assumes the High Torn will supply the society's juiciest scandals, yet it appears our quiet parish is more than capable of producing its own.
My dearest Evelyn, it has been nearly a year since I last heard your voice, and yet it feels no farther than yesterday. I come to you now because I feel your absence in every corner of this church, in every quiet moment of our home. I need your steadiness more than ever. I stand before our parish each Sunday and wonder whether they see how lost I am. They look to me for guidance, and I cannot seem to guide even our own children. Lottie. I hardly know what to do with her. She was always so gentle, so eager to please. But since you left us, she has grown withdrawn, sharp-edged, defiant. She even attended the last social, in a gown so unsuitable I expect to hear whispers of it for months. At this rate, her prospects for a good marriage are slim and declining with every passing day. And though I want to scold her, I know the fault is mine. I do not know how to reach her. You would have laughed softly, called it a young girl's foolishness, and silenced any gossip with that look of yours. I have no such gift. I fear saying the wrong thing, so I say nothing at all. And Samuel? Here, I feel my inadequacy most keenly. He is forming an attachment to the tavern keeper's son, and he will not heed my cautions. Pierce Atkins is a lovely boy, and they seem well matched in temperament, but Samuel will not hear me when I say the match is unworthy. The life Pierce leads is not for our son, the tavern, the noise, the narrowness of it. It simply won't do for our Samuel. He has not known a day of hard work in his life. You know I tried to offer Samuel a commission with the little we saved, but he refused. He does not understand how limited his prospects are without it, and how much more limited they become if he binds himself to someone with no land, no name, no future to offer him. Nothing I say seems to sway him. I fear we may have shielded him too well, and he simply does not understand his place in the world. I miss you more with each passing day. The children feel your loss as deeply as I do, though they show it in such different ways. I pray you have found the peace that eludes me still, and that I may yet prove worthy of the family you left in my care. For their sake, I must find my way. For yours, I will try to be the man you believed me to be.
Dearest Simmers, by now I am certain the entire parish has heard the news, and if you have not, allow me the pleasure of delivering it. The royal family was graced this week not only by the return of His Royal Highness Prince William, but by the unexpected arrival of the King himself, following behind his son in a modest carriage that did little to diminish the significance of the moment. It is, of course, a relief to have our monarch back among his people, and it is only fitting that a reception was arranged at once, in his honour, that it was held in the afternoon, and in the quiet of the country, rather than the bustle of Fairwicke, is merely a detail. What matters is that the King's return was celebrated, and celebrated properly. The gathering at Avondon Keep was a study in restrained elegance. Courtiers and villagers alike assembled with the kind of polite curiosity that accompanies any royal appearance, though the tone softened noticeably when the King stepped into view. His Majesty looked thinner than many remembered, and though no one dared remark upon it, the collective posture of the room shifted ever so slightly, as though bracing itself around him. Prince William remained close at hand, his expression composed but unmistakably watchful. The rest of the royal family drew near as well, forming a quiet, instinctive circle around their sovereign. It was not dramatic, nor even deliberate, but the sort of familial arrangement that speaks for itself, a household restored to its rightful centre, however changed that centre may be. As for the attendees, they behaved precisely as one expects at such an occasion. The ambitious were attentive, the curious were discreet, and the bored did their best to appear otherwise. Reverend Henry Redfern, however, deserves a brief mention. Fresh from the trials his family has weathered of late, he arrived with both children in tow. One suspects he hoped that presenting them dutifully before the king might secure a measure of favour, or at least remind his majesty of the living he has bestowed upon the reverend. Whatever the case, his efforts seem to have had effect, as both Miss Lottie and Mr. Samuel were on their best behaviour. If you ignore the moment Miss Lottie had with Baron Harbury near the refreshment table. And isn't it lovely to see that the girl's recent foibles may not have ruined her future prospects after all? Only time will tell how such dramas may unfold, but the parish may rest easy knowing they do so with the king returned and equilibrium, at last, restored. For now.
My dearest Mamma, I have been meaning to write, ever since your last letter eased my mind. Your advice has stayed with me, that Lady Margaret is not a figure to tiptoe around, but a woman with her own quiet ways. I think I needed the reminder. I had convinced myself she must resent my presence here, when in truth, she is simply reserved, not remote. I approached her, as you suggested, asking about the family's history, not as a scholar prying into old records, but as a daughter-in-law, trying to understand the life she has stepped into. To my surprise, she welcomed the conversation. There was even a hint of relief in her expression, as though she had been waiting for someone to ask. This morning, she brought me a small wooden trunk she found while sorting through her cottage. It had belonged to her husband's grandmother, tucked away and forgotten. Inside were letters, softened by time, tied with a ribbon that has long since lost its colour. She asked if I might read them with her, thinking I would appreciate them. She was right. We skimmed only a few pages, but the writer's voice lingered with me. There is an earnestness to her words, the kind that comes from someone trying to reconcile her heart with the expectations around her. One name appears more than once, Nicholas Trevelyan. I could not help wondering whether he is any relation to the Trevelyans we know. If so, the symmetry is almost unsettling. A young woman writing of a complicated affection, and now Miss Abigail Trevelyan, caught in her own quiet tangle. I do not yet know what these letters mean, or whether they mean anything at all, but there is something unfinished in them, something that feels as though it has been waiting a very long time to be seen. Lady Margaret feels it too. We have agreed to read them slowly, without forcing conclusions. I will write again when I understand more. For now, I am grateful for your counsel, for the unexpected ease growing between Lady Margaret and me, and for the sense that I may have stepped into a story far older than any of us realized. Your loving daughter, Honoria.
Dearest Simmers, there is a particular charm to the first evening hosted by a newly arrived family, especially when that family has already been seen at nearly every notable gathering of the past months. Lady Harbury chose at last to open her own doors to the parish. Her reception was modest in scale, yet arranged with such ease that one might have believed she had been presiding over Willow Down's drawing rooms for years. Baron Trevelyan and his daughter, Miss Abigail Trevelyan, were among the earliest to arrive. The Baron greeted Lady Harbury with a cordiality touched by unmistakable optimism, as though reassured to find her household aligned with his own hopes. Lady Harbury received him with her characteristic brightness, offering nothing to confirm or deny the assumptions he seemed so ready to make. Miss Abigail moved through the gathering until Mr. Gabriel Thorne entered. The moment he did, one could almost feel a shift in the air. Miss Trevelyan's expression warmed at once, and Mr. Thorne crossed to her with the ease of long acquaintance. Baron Trevelyan's earlier satisfaction faltered. Whether his displeasure was directed at the young man or at their hostess for including him is not for your observer to say. Reverend Redfern and his daughter arrived shortly after. Miss Lottie Redfern was the picture of propriety, her gown modest, her coiffure neat, her manner composed. Yet when her gaze fell upon Miss Trevelyan and Mr. Thorne in easy conversation, a flicker of something unguarded crossed her expression before she mastered it. Perhaps she was quietly setting aside a hope held too tightly. Baron Bertram Harbury joined the Redferns almost at once, greeting Miss Redfern with the easy familiarity of one already well acquainted. He remained near them for much of the evening, his attentiveness polite yet unmistakably steady, the sort of constancy that seldom goes unnoticed in a parish such as ours. Reverend Redfern received the young Baron's interest with a composure that bordered on satisfaction, while Baron Trevelyan, observing the tableau from across the room, seemed rather less delighted by the direction of the young man's attentions. The remainder of the evening passed without incident of the sort that fills columns, yet one could not help but feel that certain threads had been drawn a little closer together. Lady Harbury may be new to Willow Downs, but she has placed herself and her son very comfortably within its circle, even if not everyone finds the resulting patterns entirely to their liking.
My dearest sister, I have been meaning to write, but life at Holtbridge has taken on a rather unexpected rhythm. One does not realize how many decisions must be made in a household until one is suddenly the person everyone insists on consulting. I find it both exhausting and flattering, which is a combination I am still learning to navigate. I will come straight to the point, though it pains me to do so. I shall not be able to attend your wedding. I know you will be disappointed, and I am too, but my absence is for the happiest of reasons. Life here is shifting in ways I had not anticipated, and I find myself quite unable to travel. For the best of reasons, I will soon be taking on a new role, one I had not considered before now. Mother. It is a strange turn of events, isn't it? A year ago we were all holding our breath, hoping our deception would work well enough for me to make a good marriage. Now I am married, with a title, and on my way to fulfilling my wifely duty, and you are soon to marry your love and begin your own journey. And while we are on the subject, and I am sure it has been on your mind, though you have been too polite to ask, I am happy to report that Holtbridge is not nearly the demon I imagined he would be. Though you know my marriage was not of my choosing, we have learned to muddle along together with some ease. It is not the grand romance you are about to embark upon, but it is acceptable, comfortable even, and I am proud to report that I am far more adaptable than anyone, including myself, ever gave me credit for. I still intend to hear every detail of your wedding. As you know, I was not able to have a grand wedding of my own. I want to hear about the dress, the flowers, the moment you realize everyone is looking at you and you enjoy it far more than you will ever admit. I shall be imagining it all from here, and I expect a full account. Write soon, Violet. I miss you more than I expected to. Your loving sister, Arabella.
Fairwicke, Willow Downs. Every whisper tells a story.